welcome to Final Cut Pro Help Live. I know we were just on yesterday, but today's a fun day. We are starting the shortcut bracket today, and we're going to go through some rounds here because we have, like maybe you, I have a lot of extra time on my hands right now, and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into it. So let's do this. Let's get into it. I'm going to show you some things. We're going to talk about the bracket and look at the first round of voting, which starts today, and go through what these shortcuts do, give a little demo of them. If you're new to Final Cut, or even if you're pretty experienced, you might learn some stuff from these tips, and that's the whole goal of this bracket. So let's dive into it. I'm going to start out by showing you the bracket itself. If you have not seen this, go to anawesomeguide.com. And you'll see a page that looks like this that's on your screen here. Click on this tab that says Shortcut of the Year Bracket. It'll take you to this page. And right in the middle there, just click where it says click here to see the live bracket. And this will actually open up a numbers document, which is this one right here. Basically just a spreadsheet so you can see the bracket. There's a tab at the top you can click on if you want to see last year's 2019 bracket. If you want to see this year's, it'll be on the 2020 bracket. And then on this bracket, top left corner, just click on the percent to zoom into it. So we can crank it up to 200%, for example, and scroll through to see all of the various shortcuts that have made it into, the top 64 here. And this is the first round starting today, March 15th. So voting is live. We gather the votes through Facebook, Instagram. You can even leave a comment on this video right now with the keyboard shortcuts that you want to add a vote to. Every single comment will count as an additional vote. Last year when we did this, we had thousands of votes come in for all of these. So whichever ones you want to see move up into the next rounds and ultimately be crowned the shortcut of the year, go ahead and put those votes in. Last year, if you've been following along, Command B, as in Blade right here, did take away the crown for shortcut of the year. So it was quite exciting, very cool to see what shortcuts kind of our Final Cut community here considers either the most popular, the most used. You kind of decide the criteria for how you want to vote, but I will agree with almost every shortcut that's on this list. It deserves to be here. So what we're going to do over the next couple days, assuming I have extra time on my hands, I'm going to come on and do a video like this and just demo these shortcuts. Now, I have gone on and based on last year's voting and a couple other criteria, I've ranked each of these shortcuts, similar to how March Madness, if it were happening this year, does it. And that's the little number to the left of each of these shortcuts. They do have a ranking, and if you're on Instagram and following along on the story there, you'll see the voting, and that's what that little number is how they're ranked. So, of course, the number one ranked is going to go up against the lowest rank, which will be a 16, and most likely the higher ranked shortcut's going to move on to the next round. But you never know, we might have some upsets. So in these videos, I'm not going to go through every single shortcut. That's what I did last year, and it didn't seem to have a lot of value, and I want to provide you something that is useful. So for this year, what I'm going to do is go through, and as I post and get these votes going each day, we're going to go in and demo the lower ranked shortcut for each round. If it happens to be that there's an upset where the lower ranking shortcut actually moves on to the next round, then in the next round, we'll demo the one that it beat out. So that all of these shortcuts do get a demo going. So make sure you subscribe. That way you'll be notified when we do go live. So let's go through the essentially the shortcuts we put up for voting today. There were 6 of them. And we'll just start at the bottom with the lower ranked shortcut. So let me dive into Final Cut here. And these demos that I'm doing here haven't been too well rehearsed or anything, so if you have questions, don't hesitate to drop them into the chat down there. So the first one we're going to look at is Shift Period. So Shift Period is the shortcut to nudge something to the right by 10 frames. So let's set up a little timeline here. I have a couple clips. I'm just going to hold Shift and select a couple clips and click and drag them down onto the timeline. I'm going to use my Shift Z shortcut to fit all of those clips on the timeline. I'm also going to go up here, and there's these skimming options buttons here. I'm going to turn off audio skimming because that tends to be something a lot of people don't like. So especially for these YouTube videos, because you just hear a lot of chopping. So I'm going to turn that one off. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all we have to do for the setup here. If I let's select this longer clip here. I'm going to trim both ends of it, and then we can go in and do our shortcut there. So it may be hard to see exactly what happened because it is 10 frames. So let me do Command plus to zoom in. We're going to zoom in much closer to this edit point here. And this edit point is right when we're chopping from one clip to another. It just is a straight cut right now. There's no transition or anything. But if I click on the edge here of that edit point, notice, let's put the playhead right at the edit point, right on that spot. So there it is, and I'm going to use that shortcut Shift period. And notice how each time I do it, it's moving it 10 frames to the right. If you look at the time code in the middle, we're right now at 26 frames. If I do Shift period, we move up now to 3306. If I do Shift period again, we should be going up to 16 frames, 26, and so on. We're moving around the 30 frames there. So that's Shift period. That is the shortcut that's going up, unfortunately, against Command B. And the next shortcut that's on the list is the delete key. So this is another popular shortcut, but is underranked and is maybe not going to move on to the next round. But the delete key is super important. So again, I'm going to do Shift Z to zoom out so we can see everything here. And the delete key has a few different controls and behaviors depending on what is selected. So pretty straightforward if you're deleting something, just like if you're in a word processing app and you delete some text, it's going to delete those characters. Same thing here. If I click on this big clip in the middle and I want to get rid of it, I'll just hit the delete key and it removes that clip. If I'm up in the browser, the top left area here, if I have a clip selected, I select this one here and I hit the delete key, it's actually going to reject that clip. So the clip's not gone, it's not deleted or removed from Final Cut, it's just marked as a rejected clip. And in the browser, if you go up to where it says hide rejected, you can certainly go here and say that you want to see just your rejected clips. And there's all the rejected clips on there, including this one, which is what I just marked as rejected. So I can actually select that clip if I want to, select the whole thing, and I can use U to unmark it, and it's no longer a rejected clip. And then we'll go back to hide rejected here. All of these view options too on the right side, there's our Control H would be the shortcut to hide the rejected clips. You can certainly navigate the interface in most of what we do here with shortcuts. So that's a great way to get that stuff set up there. All right, so looked at Shift period and now the delete key. I do see a comment. How do you skim the timeline at a faster speed? That's an excellent question. I'll show you kind of a couple different things about the timeline. This is a little bit separate. We are going to see in a couple of days here, there's a few keys to control playback. So when we talk about skimming is the process of just basically dragging the mouse or the cursor across your clips. So if you use Command minus, you can zoom out of your timeline, make everything much smaller, and then you're skimming across these clips is essentially faster. Now, what I think the comment in the stream here in the chat is asking is basically how you can control playback. And this is a shortcut we're going to see in the next couple days in voting. We have a couple keys. They're J, K, and L. So if you don't use J, K, and L to navigate a project, you should. J, K, and L are some excellent shortcuts. So let me go get some longer clips here. I know these couple clips are pretty long. And now again, I'm going to use Shift Z to zoom out of my whole timeline. Notice how much longer these clips are. We now have about 30 minutes of content on the timeline. And if I look at my little playhead here, I can hit the space bar to play back the project. And it goes and plays it back. And actually, let me select all these clips. I'm going to lower the volume so we don't have that fighting my voice here. So if I play back, you can watch in the center here where our little time code value is. And if you can't see it, totally fine. Right now, it's playing back at normal speed. This is, if you have 1 second of video in real time, that means it's going to take 1 second to play back that clip. So if you're just trying to review your project, you can review it quickly by using either the L keys, which would be fast forward, or the J keys, which would be rewind. Each time you press the letter L or the letter J, it's going to, in sequence, it's going to go faster and faster. So if I wanted to fast forward towards the end of this project, I'm just going to press L, and each time I press L, it's going faster and faster. If you notice my time code in the middle here, we're at 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. See how quickly it's going. This video is just a static shot. You might see me run by the camera. There it goes. So each time we hit that key, it goes faster and faster. And then you want to pause it. Just press the letter K on the keyboard to pause it, or the space bar. And if you want to play it back, press the space bar again, and that'll pick up and continue that playback. And then same thing for rewind. If we want to rewind the project, just press J a couple times. Each time you press J, it's going to rewind faster and faster. Notice that playhead is now going, each minute is clicking by at about a couple seconds. So that's a way to quickly navigate around your project. And skimming is really just this act here of just dragging across it, but those keys are your way to play back your project and review it, especially if you're editing something or you're looking at your raw footage. You can use those keys up in the browser here too. That's a great way to navigate through your clips and very quickly move around. Now, those J, I believe both J and L are going to be in this shortcut of the year bracket that we see. So you'll see some of those demos coming up over the next couple days. But don't hesitate. If you got a question, put it in the chat there. I'd be happy to answer those because there's not really anything planned too much for this stream here. But yeah, going back to our shortcuts, the next one in the line that I wanted to demo is simply the letter N, as in Nancy or November. The letter N will enable or disable snapping. And the letter N is also on your, so on my timeline here, it's also this button at the top right of the timeline, or the right side of our little toolbar that goes through this interface. And this little button right here, this is the snapping button. So you can certainly just click on this button to enable or disable snapping, but pressing the letter N on the keyboard will quickly enable or disable snapping. But what does snapping actually do, right? So let's go ahead and move some things around on the timeline. I have right now 4 clips on the primary storyline, which is this area through the middle of the interface. And I'm just going to take this second clip here, and I'm going to click and drag it over to the left. And notice as I do that, the little blue button or like line that's there is automatically kind of what it's doing is snapping. It's locking to that little spot that's there. So snapping allows you to somewhat easily link things up and put clips into specific spots. Let's grab another clip up here on the timeline. Let's go with this little cover shot that we had here. We'll drag this down and notice how to the left of this clip, I'm going to drag it over, and right here, notice that yellow line that goes through the interface? That's the snapping happening. So snapping allows you to much easier than just kind of having to manually line this up. Like to line that up, frame accuracy by just dragging and dropping it to a specific spot is very difficult. So you may still be confused. Totally fine. Let's turn snapping off and see what happens. The same thing. I'm going to drag the same clip down. So I'm going to press the letter N, and notice my snapping is no longer blue. It's kind of this white icon, which lets us know it's disabled. I'll delete this clip, and let's drag it back down again. So with snapping turned off, notice as I go across that edit point, we don't see those yellow or gold lines, which are the snapping indicators, because now snapping is turned off. So it's going to go wherever I drop it. Because snapping, sometimes it can get in the way. Sometimes you do want to manually just put it right at a specific spot. You can do that with a snapping turned off. And then again, as I'm dragging something, if I hit the letter N, it turns snapping on, and now I can see the behavior of that. So snapping can be very useful, but it can also get in the way. So using that shortcut, just the letter N, that will enable or disable snapping. Goes against the grave accent in our shortcut of the year voting. So make sure you get onto the Instagram and get that voting. The next one, we have 3 more shortcuts halfway through. The next one that I wanted to show is Shift F. Shift F is in Frank. Shift F is a great shortcut because you have content that's down on your timeline, and a lot of times you want to find that content in your browser. So for example, this clip that I just dropped on the timeline, I know that right after this spot, I actually panned over and showed someone else. So maybe I want to get that clip, and I can do that very easily by selecting this clip and using the Shift F keyboard shortcut. And what that does is it goes and reveals that clip in the browser. So instead of having to go and search for it, it goes into the browser and finds that clip for me. So again, let's navigate somewhere else, select that clip, do Shift F, and notice top left here of the browser, this first selected clip, that's the same clip that's here on the timeline. And let's just do this. I'm going to go up to View, Browser, and let's show some clip names. So this clip name is IMG 1005. Notice on our timeline here, IMG 1005. So that goes and shows us that clip, and I can do it with another one. Let's do this one. Is 992, Shift F, and here's 0992, shows it in the browser. So that's what the Shift F shortcut does. Again, these are all the top 64 shortcuts based on votes in Final Cut, and even if you're not going to, I guarantee you're not going to use all these shortcuts all the time, but just knowing that command exists is a very useful one. Especially with this project here, and this event has 723 various clips. That's a lot of clips. So to have to hunt through all of those to find something that is in your timeline or something else can be very difficult. So that is Shift F for that shortcut. And see another comment there that you're trying to remember most of the shortcuts. You want to leave the mouse alone. I completely agree with you. The more of these shortcuts you can use, the better. Earlier we demoed using J, K, and L. Those are some great ones to navigate around. So yeah, learning these shortcuts is awesome. It's a great way to save time. And the last thing you want to do is waste time hunting for media, for example. So that's where that Shift F comes in. Now, another shortcut that's very useful is one that will extend and edit, which is Shift X, like X-ray or xylophone, Shift X. So what is an extend edit? Well, let's use this clip up at the top here for a second. If I go to the left edge of this clip, I could click and drag it to the left. And notice essentially what I'm doing here is extending that clip, or I'm making it longer going towards the left. And once I get all the way to the end of the clip, it shows me a little red bar there. Well, I can do that without having to use the mouse here to select that. I can just move my cursor to somewhere here and then do the shortcut here, which should be Shift X to extend that. Now, this one, I might have to select that edit point. And then there we go. Now we have the Shift X is extending that over to that spot. So that is Shift X. You can use it to go the reverse, which you just saw here. I can do Shift X to shorten that edge, or Shift X to extend it or make it longer. Same thing, this was doing it with a connected clip, but you can do the same thing with a clip that's on your primary storyline or within a storyline. You can select it, go to a spot, and then do Shift X, and it shortened the front of that. Let me do Command Z, show you that again. Notice the end of the project and the length of this clip here, it's going to shorten this clip and shorten the entire project because we're on the magnetic timeline. So that's what that Shift X does, allows you to do an extend edit. All right, and then the last shortcut I wanted to demo here today that's posted on the Instagram account for voting in our shortcut of the year bracket is the Option key and the left bracket, which if you have a standard Apple keyboard, the left bracket is the one to the right of the letter P, as in Peter. But yeah, we have Option and then the left bracket, which is just demoed it there. Very similar to what Shift X does for an extend edit. The Option and left bracket will shorten the beginning of a clip. And there you see it. So again, if this is a clip here, Option left bracket shortens the beginning of that one. I can go over here, Shift left bracket, and it's shortening the clip that's under, in my case, the skimmer, because I have skimming enabled. It's shortening the beginning of that clip. Okay, now let me Command Z a couple times. I'm going to do Shift Z to fit this. What's the difference between Shift X and that Option left bracket that we just did there? Option left bracket is always trimming the start or the beginning of your clip and what's selected there, and it's doing it without having to select anything. Okay, so you have Option left bracket. You also have the right bracket, which would trim the end of a clip at any point. So if you want to see another demo how you would do this with the mouse, for example, so looking at this middle clip here with the the chickens there, if I'm trimming the start of this clip, it's the same thing as going to the left side of the clip and then clicking and dragging this over. I'm dragging to the right, and it's trimming the start of that clip. So that's how you can do it manually with the mouse, with clicking and dragging. But without clicking and dragging, if you want to do that, you just move the mouse to where you want it to trim to, and then go ahead and do that Option and the left bracket, and it trims to that spot. Okay, if you want to completely get rid of the mouse, you can go ahead and use your J, K, and L keys. J to rewind, K to pause, and L to fast forward. You can use this to navigate around, and let's look at this next clip after the chickens here. If I want to trim the start to that point, I use the keyboard to navigate, and I'll use that Option left bracket to trim the start of that clip. And actually, this one has this edit point here selected, so let's make sure nothing's selected. I'll fast forward and do the same thing here. So Option left bracket, that's how you can trim the start of the clip. And then if I wanted to trim the right side of the clip, that would be our Option right bracket, trims the end of the clip over. Okay, can be a little bit tricky to get used to that, and I'm throwing a lot of shortcuts at you over the next couple days. I do not expect anyone to learn all of these at the same time. Just getting used to using J, K, and L to navigate around your timeline, for example, takes time to get used to that. However, as you get used to using these shortcuts, you can then start to pile them on to the point where you go to the mouse once in a while, and the rest of the time you're on the keyboard doing all kinds of other things. So these shortcuts are amazing to get used to and to learn, but just know that you're not going to use all of them in all of your workflows there. However, with that said, those were the 6 shortcuts that were posted on Instagram today. And for the voting of the shortcut of the year, these are the 6 shortcuts that are the lower ranked shortcuts. So these are the ones that are probably not going to make it on to the next round in a couple days, but they are up there and they are ready to be voted on. So make sure to go over here to anawesomeguide.com. Click here to see that live bracket. That'll open up this spreadsheet where you can see all the various shortcuts there. The little numbers to the left of them are their rankings as far as they go, and the higher ranked ones are probably going to make it on to the next round here as far as what people vote for. You can leave a comment on just about anything to be able to vote for that shortcut, and the ones with the most votes will move on there. So the ones we looked at today, as far as our shortcut, over on the right side, we have the other side of the bracket here. But the shortcuts that we looked at for today, we looked at the ones over on the top left here. You can see they're all organized into categories. So today we looked at some of the editing and organizing shortcuts, which are probably the most commonly used one. And we looked at our lower ranked ones, the lowest one being Shift period, then going up to delete, N for snapping, turning it snapping on and off, Shift F to reveal in browser, Shift X to extend and edit, and finally the option left bracket to trim the start. And then I see a comment in the chat right now asking how can I turn off the snapping when I transform a clip. Should be the exact same shortcut there, just hitting N to enable or disable snapping. Let me just transform this clip here up in my viewer here. Use Shift Z to fit it so it gets rid of this little zoom box. We don't need that right now. I'll hit the transform tool. And as I'm moving this around, if I get towards the edge, that's when it should be snapping. And if I hit the letter N, that turns off the snapping, and now we should be able to drag that around. Let me add a title here, because it might be easier to see it with a title, because that tends to be where you see more of that snapping happening. So this one, dragging around, snapping's turned off, so it's not doing anything. And now I have snapping enabled. And still not really snapping to the edges there. It might be how I have the interface here set up. But it should be the same enabling or disabling with that snapping. Could also be the type of title that's being used. Yeah, we're still not snapping to any of the edges or anything there. And then snapping off. But that should enable and disable it. I have problems sometimes with the streaming interfering with those types of options that are on our interface. So, cool. I hope that answers the questions that we have for today and for today's stream. Again, we're in kind of a unique time. So if I have extra free time like this, we'll be doing more streams with each of the various shortcuts. Don't hesitate to jump on, leave a comment, all that good stuff with what you want to see in these demos. The goal is just to demo the shortcuts that we're posting, but I'd be very happy to kind of go off topic and demo other things as they come out. So I see that in the comment there that it's not working for you with the snapping. Are you saying when you enable and disable snapping, is it doing what it's doing for me here where it's not snapping? Or is everything that you're transforming for a clip snapping and you're not able just to turn off the snapping? That's where just kind of jumping. So like how we have right here with the edge, it's kind of locking to the edge or snapping to the edge. Is that what you're trying to turn off there? Because that may be a specific thing with that tool that it's not able to disable or prevent that from happening there, because essentially you want to probably get rid of that snapping. It's always snapping in the middle. Okay, so I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Maybe if I'm dragging the middle like that, snapping there, and you get those yellow lines. That may be what you're running into. I thought that holding or having the letter N with the disable and snapping would get rid of that, but apparently it's not doing that. So another way that you can work around that or get rid of snapping in the viewer, the way that I would do it is as we're dragging, after you start your drag, hold the command key on the keyboard. And while you're holding the command key, notice now it's not snapping to any of those guidelines or those areas there. So that's the workaround that I would use for that. I thought that when you have the snapping here disabled that it does it for the entire interface, but I guess that's not the case. So for the viewer, this area in the middle when you're in the viewer to kind of temporarily disable snapping, just hold the command key, and as you drag it around, then you can see how those guides and those kind of alignment snaps are not happening. That's kind of your temporary way to disable that. The second you let go of the command key, though, that snapping will be re-enabled. So I don't know if there's a permanent way to disable that. Let's see if there's anything in the preferences. Yeah, I don't see anything in here to kind of like permanently disable that viewer snapping. Most of the time you do want that, and it comes in handy for a lot of things. But as a temporary workaround, holding that command key allows you to temporarily disable that snapping. So when you are moving, especially very precisely, especially in the middle there, I've run into it many times where it's snapping to something you don't want it to, and that's the same reason in the timeline that you're able to enable or disable that snapping, because it can be very frustrating when you're trying to get right in between an area right before it snaps over, but it keeps jumping there. That's probably what's happening to you. So, yeah, there we go. So that's our shortcuts for today, and we'll be back on live probably tomorrow to get a look at the next shortcuts that are going to be voted for. And again, shortcut of the year, we're taking in votes all pretty much the next 3 or 4 weeks. We're taking votes. So if there's a shortcut you believe to be your favorites, don't hesitate to drop them into the chat on Instagram.com/FinalCutProHelp. You can vote for them there. If you're on Twitter, @FinalCutProHelp. What are the other ones? Facebook, all those great socials. And worst case, send me an email, finalcutprohelp@me.com. Regardless, outside of any of this stuff, if you have questions or other issues you're running into, don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Be happy to answer those questions for you. All right. Thanks you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe. I don't know when we'll go live tomorrow, if we will, but make sure you subscribe. You'll get that notification if you hit the little bell when we do go online. All right. Otherwise, everyone have a wonderful rest of your Sunday here, and we'll see you back tomorrow.